Welcome to the Sunday morning worship service of the First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh for Sunday, May 24th, 2020. Unitarian Universalism is a welcoming and inclusive religion, not static, but dynamic. I'm Reverend Connie Grant, minister of this congregation. Erica Shadowsong, director of Lifespan Religious Education, will tell us a story by recorded video. Our musicians this morning are the Dr. James Johnson Trio with Dr. J on piano, Jeff Grubbs on bass, and Thomas Wendt on drums. We're receiving technical support this morning from Paul Cunningham, Will Snavely, and Brian Junker. Whoever you are and wherever you are, we are glad that you are with us this morning. It may look like these pews are empty, but they are not, because you are here with us. Welcome all. As we light the chalice this morning, these words from Paul Sprecher. We light this chalice to honor the memory of those who have come before us, kindling flames of wisdom in dark times, giving us a legacy of freedom and a love of truth, a legacy that warms our hearts and lights our paths. We gather in religious community celebrating the gifts of life, recognizing our part in the greater wholeness, lifting up those things that are worthy of our attention, learning to be our best selves.
The Wall, written by Eve Bunting. This is the wall, my grandfather's wall. On it are the names of those killed in a war long ago. Where is Grandpa's name, I ask. We have to find it, Dad says. He and I have come a long way for this, and we walk slowly, searching. The wall is black and shiny as a mirror. In it I can see Dad and me. I can see the bare trees behind us and the dark flying clouds. A man in a wheelchair stares at the names. He doesn't have legs. I'm looking, and he sees me looking and smiles. Hi, son. Hi. His hat is a soft, squashed green, and there are medals on it. His pant legs are folded back, and his shirt is a soldier's shirt. A woman old as my grandma is hugging a man old as my grandpa would be. They are both crying. Shh, he whispers. Shh. Flowers and other things have been laid against the wall. There are little flags, an old teddy bear, and letters weighted with stones so they won't blow away. Someone has left a rose with a droopy head. Have you found Grandpa yet? I ask. No, Dad says. There are so many names. They are listed under the years when they were killed. I found 1967. That's when my grandpa died. Dad runs his fingers along the rows of print, and I do too. The letters march side by side like rows of soldiers. They're nice and even. It's better printing than I can do. The wall is warm. Dad is searching and searching. Albert A. Jensen, Charles Bronowski, George Munoz, he mutters. His fingers stop moving. Here he is. My grandpa? I ask. Dad nods. Your grandpa. His voice blurs. My dad. He was just my age when he was killed. Dad's rubbing the name, rubbing and rubbing as if he wants to wipe it away. Maybe he just wants to remember the way it feels. He lifts me so I can touch it too. We've brought paper. Dad puts it over the letters and rubs on it with a pencil so the paper goes dark and the letters show up white. You've got a lot of other guys' names on there too, I tell him. Dad looks at the paper. Your grandpa won't mind. They were probably friends of his anyway, I say. Dad nods. Maybe so. A man and a boy walk past. Can we go to the river now, Grandpa? The boy asks. Yes. The man takes the boy's hand. But button your jacket. It's cold. My dad stands very still with his head bent. A bunch of big girls in school uniforms come down the path. Their teacher is with them. They are all carrying more of those little flags. Is this wall for dead soldiers, Miss Gerber? One of them asks in a loud voice. The names are the names of the dead, but the wall is for all of us, the teacher says. They make a lot of noise and ask a lot of questions, and all the time, Dad just stands there with his head bowed, and I stand beside him. The girls stick their flags in the dirt in front of the wall and leave. Then it's quiet again. Dad folds the paper that has Grandpa's name on it and puts it in his wallet. He slides out a picture of me, one of the yucky ones they took in school. Mom made me wear a tie. Dad puts the picture on the grass below Grandpa's name. It blows away. I get up and put it back and pile some little stones on top. My face smiles at me up from under the stones. Grandpa won't know who I am, I tell Dad. I think he will, Dad says. I move closer to him. It's sad here. He puts his hand on my shoulder. I know, but it's a place of honor. I'm proud that your grandfather's name is on this wall. I am too. I am. But I'd rather have my grandpa here, taking me to the river, telling me to button my jacket because it's cold. I'd rather have him here.
We hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows. A memorial service for Siamak Adibi, husband of Joan, father of Jennifer, Cameron, and Elise, will be held on Saturday, May 30th at 10 a.m. With our church building remaining closed, the service will be live streamed, and the link to the live stream will be on the church website. Rob Schwartz left for California on Friday to see his mom, who is currently in ICU and not expected to pull through. She's 91 and living in a memory care unit of a continuing care retirement facility. Earlier this week, she was diagnosed with pneumonia and sepsis and is now experiencing heart trouble. Rob was able to make it to California to see her, although she was not awake. He's hoping that she wakes and is able to hear him say goodbye. Thoughts and prayers are with Linda Fleming on the death of Linda's father, Donald Fleming, yesterday, May 23rd, after a long illness. Linda Kaufman celebrated her 80th birthday by Zoom on Tuesday with about 20 friends and relatives, and Linda says it was a hoot. May we find joy in our connections with each other and in the pleasures that life holds. Let us continue to care for one another and for ourselves in all the ways we can. We remember those who are experiencing losses of various kinds and those facing health challenges. We are aware that many are facing heightened difficulties presented by these times that continue to be challenging for all. If you or someone you know in the church community have a temporary financial need that might be helped through the Minister's Benevolence Fund, known as Marion's Purse, please let me know. As always, please be in touch. We hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows, whether spoken or unspoken. Let's take a moment to be quiet together. When love is felt or fear is known, when holidays and holy days and such times come, when anniversaries arrive by calendar or consciousness, when seasons come as seasons do, old and known, but somehow new, when lives are born or people die, when something sacred sensed in soil or sky, mark the time. Respond with thought or prayer or smile or grief. Let nothing living slip between the fingers of the mind. For all of these are holy things we will not, cannot find again. Stafford. Starting here, what do you want to remember? How sunlight creeps along a shining floor? What scent of old wood hovers? What softened sound from outside fills the air? Will you ever bring a better gift for the world than the breathing respect that you carry wherever you go right now? Are you waiting for time to show you some better thoughts? When you turn around, starting here, lift this new glimpse that you found. Carry into evening all that you want from this day. The interval you spent reading or hearing this, keep it for life. What can anyone give you greater than now, starting here, when you turn around? More than 40 years ago, as an undergraduate in college, I took a film class as one of my electives. We watched some movies that were and are considered classics. Citizen Kane and Rashomon stand out in my memory. Not so much the details, but at least the fact that I saw them. Probably many of you have seen those movies, perhaps more recently than I have, or maybe you just remember them better than I do, or maybe you've heard about them and know the themes and significance of them. I haven't seen either of those movies since I watched them over 40 years ago, but what I remember of Citizen Kane is the word rosebud, the final word spoken by Mr. Kane. I think that the statute of limitations has run out so that I don't actually need to issue a spoiler alert. It turns out that Rosebud was Mr. Kane's childhood sled. I remember even less about the details of Rashomon, but what I recall is that several people give very different accounts of witnessing a crime, and it's not clear which account is true. In different ways, both of these stories are about memory, what we remember and how. At the end of his life, Mr. Kane remembers Rosebud, an artifact from his childhood. The characters in Rashomon remember differently subjectively, depending on their points of view. Memory is subjective, fallible. And paradoxically, our memories make us who we are. We construct ourselves and our lives from memory. It has been said that we are what we remember. One writer describes memories as constructions of an imaginative process. When people attend a Unitarian Universalist memorial service for the first time, they're often surprised by the fact that our services focus on life, not on death, and not even on afterlife. We focus on life, and on a particular life. When I craft a memorial service, I often begin with these words. We turn now to the wisdom and long experience of humankind to establish in our minds and confirm in our memories the true quality of the life which is now fulfilled. And I often include this passage. Let us be honest with death. Let us not pretend that it is less than it is. It is separation, it is sorrow, it is grief. But let us neither pretend that death is more than it is. It is not annihilation. As long as memory endures, our loved one's influence will be felt. Death is not an end to love. Humanity's need for love from each of us is boundless. It is not an end to joy and laughter. Nothing would less honor a vibrant soul than to make our lives drab with excessive grief. Let us be honest with death, for in that honesty, we will understand our loved one better and ourselves more deeply. In constructing a eulogy, which I define as a praiseful biography, I try to be honest with life and true to the memory of the person who has died. Sometimes this includes reference to some painful memories, which are part of that truth. And at the same time, in constructing a eulogy, I remind myself of these words from Christian scripture that I find meaningful. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honorable, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. I remind myself, too, of these words from Unitarian Universalist minister Chuck Gaines. No person can sum up the life of another. Life is too precious to be passed over with mere words. Rather, it must remain as it is remembered by those who loved and watched and shared. For such memories are alive, unbound by events of birth or death. And as living memories, we possess the greatest gift one person can give to another. We who remember are living memories, imperfect, fallible, subjective. A book titled Pieces of Light addresses how the new science of memory illuminates the stories we tell about our pasts. The writer cites studies of memory. We now know that we do not record our experiences the way a camera records them. Our memories work differently. We extract key elements from our experiences and store them. We then recreate or reconstruct our experiences rather than retrieve copies of them. Sometimes in the process of reconstructing, we add on feelings, beliefs, or even knowledge we obtained after the experience. In other words, we bias our memories of the past by attributing to them emotions or knowledge we acquired after the event. A few years ago, my husband John and I traveled to South Carolina to meet an older half-brother whom John had not until recently known existed. A cousin of John's, an amateur genealogist from his mother's side of his family, figured out that his father had a son from a previous marriage, and she located John's father's older son. John had grown up with the story that his biological father had abandoned him and his mother. He grew up believing that his father didn't care about him in the least. John has very few direct memories of his father. His parents were divorced when John was very young, and his mother just wouldn't talk about his father at all. She never told John that his father had previously been married and had a son. John never saw his father again after his parents divorced. When his mother remarried when John was about 10 years old, John was adopted by his stepfather and was given the last name Grant. John's previously unknown half-brother told John a different story about the man who was their dad. Larry, John's half-brother, was in touch with their father through the years, off and on. Larry knew that his father had remarried and had another son, but he didn't know where to find his brother, with not even a clue about his name. John's cousin, the genealogist, brought the half-brothers together, and over the course of several days, John and Larry talked and talked some more about the past and about their lives today. After the visit with Larry, after learning biographical details and hearing stories about Larry's experiences with their father, John said, "Everything I thought I knew was wrong." Instead of the story that John had carried since childhood of a father who was a drunken bum who didn't care about him at all, John now has a story of a father who was probably mentally ill, didn't abuse alcohol, and who did his best to sort out his own life. According to the story that Larry shared with John, John's mother wouldn't ever allow John's father to see him, although his father tried. The story is painful in its own way, but perhaps it is closer to the truth. Both John and Larry seem transformed by the experience of meeting each other. In many ways, they both have a new story now. They each have a more complete story of their father and of their own lives. Some of the events in the new story are the same as in the old one, but the meaning is different. Both John and Larry expressed the intention to use the story of their father to inspire them to live their own lives well. Psychologist Dan McAdams has researched and written extensively about what he calls the redemptive self. According to McAdams, in American society, the most powerful life stories are narratives of personal redemption, through which people transform pain and suffering into a life designed to benefit the self and others. He encourages readers to explore their own personal myths and to consider ways in which they might identify, live, and change their myth. According to McAdams' life story theory of human development, we infuse meaning and purpose into our lives by developing our own personal myths. From childhood onward, we introduce characters and develop themes. Our stories are who we are. Our stories, our lives, are constructed from the things that happen to us, and of course from how we respond to the things that happen. We construct our lives from the things that happen and from our responses through the stories we tell ourselves about what happened. Our lives are a construction of spiraling memories, facts, fictions, imagination, impressions, fragments, interpretations, responses. In the poem, "The Young Dead Soldiers Do Not Speak" by Archibald MacLeish, the young dead soldiers leave it to those who live on to give their lives meaning. They say, "We were young. We have died. Remember us." They say, "We have done what we could, but until it is finished, it is not done." They say, "We have given our lives, but until it is finished, no one can know what our lives gave." They say, "Our deaths are not ours, they are yours. They will mean what you make them." They say, "Whether our lives and our deaths were for peace and a new hope or for nothing, we cannot say. It is you who must say this. We leave you our deaths. Give them their meaning." They say, "Remember us." Just as we are supported and sustained by this religious community, we support and sustain this church through our financial contributions as well as through our participation. You may wish to make a donation to the Minister's Benevolence Fund known as Marion's Purse, which is used to help congregants in temporary financial need. Donations by check may be mailed to the church office. Electronic donations can be made online through the church website or by texting GIVE to 412-435-1050 and following the instructions. As we extinguish our chalice flame, may its light continue to be a source of illumination in our lives. And may we live our lives fully and creatively so that we may be a blessing to ourselves, to each other, and to all those whose lives we touch. Amen.